All right, this is a special feature focus for FlipPilot. This is the follow-up drip campaigns, the automated follow-up that's going to save you a lot of time and make it to where your follow-up is consistent. That's a huge deal because a lot of my friends and a lot of the top investors across the country tell me that 40, 50, 60, I've even heard as much as 80% of their deals come from follow-up, okay? So it's a big chunk for a lot of people because they know it works and they know that's the key. So that first interaction with the seller a lot of times doesn't produce that deal. It's following up with them over time. Time has a way of motivating people because different situations happen in their life after a certain amount of time and they're then willing to sell, or they've thought about it enough and they're willing to sell. And if you're the one that's continually sending them these messages, you're going to be top of mind when that change happens. And so it's paramount to be there. And we've set up follow-up campaigns and the sequences to not seem so automated, which is huge. And I've heard other people say, well, I don't want to use follow-up because it's going to seem automated. Seller's going to know it's automated. We've set it up in here pretty cool so it doesn't seem automated. I'm going to show you those features. Okay, so let's look at this from a use case scenario, okay? So what I've got is this property here in contact not made. It was a new record that came in. I was not able to get a hold of the seller. And so I did some scheduled contacts and tried to manually call them after a couple hours the next day, try to call them, send them a text. Nothing worked. So I've got new leads coming in I need to work. And so I'm going to put this into an automated follow-up sequence I'm going to create for ones that I can't get a hold of, okay? And so what I've done was in my follow-ups, under follow-up templates, I've created this sequence called contact not made. Now it's got 2 steps just to show you, and it's just 3 days, and I've got 1 record in there right now. But if I manage this follow-up, I'm going to show you what it's all about. I've got my label, which is the name of this sequence. Any emails that come out of this sequence, automated emails, are going to show that they're from me. I put my name here. You can change that. And then the website or the my call rail phone number that it's going to use to send text messages out is going to be the one I chose here. But I also chose as a default. I also toggled this use campaign phone number. So here's the cool thing about this. This is a follow-up drip campaign, right? You add your leads to it and they start getting these messages over time for whatever you specify in the sequence. So if that lead that you're adding to this came in from your website and they called you on a phone number on your website, if that campaign is set for that record, for that lead, then the messages coming from the follow-up sequence are going to use that number. So how cool is that? Because that's another thing to make it not seem automated is you can understand the disconnect, right? A seller goes to your website and they call you from the phone number that they see, okay? And you try to call them back from a different number, you try to text them back from a different number than that number, they're not going to know who that is, right? There's a disconnect. So if you call them back from the same number, text them back from the same number, it's going to be more likely they're going to know who that's coming from, and it's just going to be a better experience. And so our follow-up campaigns and sequences can actually use whatever number that record has from the campaign. So if the marketing campaign is set for how that lead came into you, it can use that same phone number if you have it for that campaign, if you have one set. So let's go ahead and choose to use that so that any text message comes out of this follow-up sequence is going to use that campaign phone number. So if I want to create a new step, I can click here. I've got a text already coming out day 1 at 9:09 p.m. That's not good. Let me change that to a.m. Don't want to piss anybody off with a text at night. I'm going to show you that this is a text message. I can change it to email. I don't have email integrated right now in this test campaign I'm showing you, so that's not able to be selected. But I do have call rail integrated, so I'm able to do the text. Or I can do a scheduled contact. There's a feature focus video on scheduled contact, so I'm not really going to go into that. But it basically just schedules for you to manually call, text, or email at a certain time, date and time. So this is a text message, and I have, hey, primary contact first name. Now this is a variable, so I clicked here and I chose a variable, which is another way it doesn't seem automated because it's going to use that contact's first name that's in the record, that's in the lead, right here in the text message, okay? So it seems like you typed it out and sent it off one at a time to them. And it's just short and sweet like any text would be. Don't go putting a paragraph in your text because people don't do that, right? So to make it realistic, just put a short and sweet message trying to get them to just make contact back with you. Okay, so that's what this one is, and I'm going to go ahead and save that because I changed that message. But the schedule contact, and I can't do that right now because I made that change and it's going to propagate for any other records that are in there, so I have to wait for that to happen. But it's basically a scheduled contact to call again on day 3 at 10:01 a.m. So the timing is something too I should mention, is that this time you want to have, when these automated texts or emails go out, be not always at 9 o'clock on the dot, because people don't always text and call right on the dot and email right on the dot. So just make them random sort of times like that helps out a lot. All right, so that's updating those changes. If I go to my pipeline, I can go back to this record, and I've tried to make contact with them, could not, so I'm going to put them into follow-up. I'm going to choose my contact not made, and it populates with my defaults. I'm going to go ahead and start that sequence. Now it tells me that the record will no longer be in my pipeline. And the reason for that is I'm no longer actively working this lead. It's going into the background for FlipPilot to automatically drip out this campaign that I set up to them. Now if they respond, I can choose to pull them out of it and bring them back into the pipeline. And so I'm going to show you that here. So now that we've put it in follow-up, there's a button that says take out of follow-up if you want. So how do you find this if it's no longer in your pipeline? Okay, the record's no longer there because I'm no longer working, it's being automated follow-up. If I go to follow-ups and I go back to that sequence, I can see I've now got 2 records. So if I show my records, I can see it right here. I can see this list of records currently in that campaign. All right, so if I click that one, and let's say they texted me back, they responded to my text, and I'm communicating now, I can take that thing out of follow-up. I can say take out of follow-up, and it's going to put it back in a new status for me, and I can move it to wherever I want at that point. So now I've got it here and say contact is made, and I made an appointment with them, and that's for tomorrow at 1 p.m. So now I've got an appointment set, and I'm moving that thing right along, and it's very cool to have that. Now I no longer have that record, I only have 1 left in here in this follow-up. So they're no longer going to keep getting messages, because that's another way people screw up follow-up, automated follow-up, is to, after they've communicated with you, you don't want to keep sending them those messages, the automated messages, bugging them. So this is a way to make sure that doesn't happen. Another situation that you might be thinking about is, well, what happens when it's done running through the sequence and they did not contact you, right? Because you just have the sequence set for a certain amount of time. If they still have not contacted you after that sequence is run through, then it's just kind of sitting there, right? Nothing's happening to it. It's still not on your pipeline because it was in the automated follow-up. That's what these orphaned records are. And you'll get a notification badge up here in follow-ups, just like this one on pipeline, that notifies you of any records that have finished any follow-up and are now orphaned. Now nothing's really happening with them. So you'll see a list of them here, and you can choose to add them to another follow-up again, a more long-term one, to where you can just keep this going on and on for like 8 years. And I have bought a house that took me, I think it was like 8 years of following up with letters to this person. It took me 8 years, but I bought it and it was a hell of a deal. So it can happen, does happen, and I encourage you, keep following up until they tell you no more, no more, don't send me another message, then don't send them another message. But do that until they do, because otherwise, you never know when that motivation could change. And obviously you don't want to piss people off, so space the messages out. You don't want to hit them every day with a text, for 2 months. That's going to drive anybody crazy. So consider what you might be okay receiving, but don't make too many assumptions, because sellers, you can't assume what a seller's going to want and not want regarding somebody checking with them to see if they might still consider selling a property. So that's the cool, powerful features of our FlipPilot follow-up sequences to help you automate dripping out these email text and setting up scheduled contacts to get more of those deals, to get even 40, 50, 60% more deals, up to, I don't know how many that means. Like, I forgot even who it was, but they said 80% of the deals were from follow-up. Could you imagine if they didn't do it? They would only be getting 20% of the deals that they're doing and not 80%. It's just crazy. So this is something we need to do as real estate investors, is do this follow-up. And FlipPilot helps you with these automated campaigns.